Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we decrease tomorrow's divorce rate today by teaching singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I'm your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Michelle Larkin. Michelle, say hi to the people.
What's up? What? It's amazing today. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. This is amazing. I'm excited. If I could just tell you.
Actually, you can, because that's what my next statement would be. What you got going on? This is something that you want to share?
I am excited for this decade. I spent some time this past weekend, on a hike. I do that, regularly. But this time I was just really focused on, wow, this is the end of a decade. What am I trying to be in the next one? I had a Queen's Moves workshop this weekend that was very life-changing for me, as well as the people who participated. And we really were just getting really clear. And I'm excited to the point where I worked over the weekend. And this is a journal that I'm working on. This is my brand. I move like the queen that I am. After having that workshop, I decided to have some mugs to give away this Christmas for people who supported. I was encouraged to write a journal for creating the space to think about how things are moving with intention. And there's something to be said for that. So I'm taking my own medicine. So I'm so excited today because I literally woke up and spent time getting in the zone, if you will, right? So, and just expecting great things. And I'm gonna tell you, this is really funny. So my friend lives I don't know, maybe 30 miles, 40 miles away. I'm driving to work this morning to an event, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and he says, "Hey, look to your left." Homie's standing on the corner getting ready to walk across the street. I was like, "Stop playing! Stop playing!" I was like, what a way to start the day. And then I'm in DC, and it's crazy up here. I had to go to a conference. How about I find a parking space in the front of the hotel? I literally pulled up, parked, walked in the front door. Never happened. I was like, yep, my day.
You own
100%. And then I go to work and I'm having all these conversations, and I was like, it's a full moon, right? So people be tripping. And I was like, you're not getting me out the zone. Not today. Then I just get just before this session, I get a call from my nephew from, oh my God, I haven't talked to this young man in maybe 10, 15 years. Wow. I don't know how he found my number. And he's like, hello, auntie? And I was like, who? Who is this? Who? And then he says who he is. And I was like, that's all I got to say. And this is a way to start the decade. Oh, and I was listening to Janet Jackson today, design of a decade, escapade. I was going back. I was like, it's just a happy day. I'm just blessed.
So you're on 10 right now.
I move like the queen that I look for 2020. This is coming out in 2020.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You put it out there, so you can't take it back. We're gonna have to talk about you. I'm like, you said on actually this is episode 31.
Amazing. Oh, yeah. And see, look, you see my branding?
No love. Today? Yeah, I see. I love the love. That red is awesome. I'm loving it.
I'm just happy.
You're on 10. I'm loving the energy. I need the energy. I'm running on fumes right now. So
not anymore. It's contagious. Not anymore.
Well, as far as what I have going on over here, honestly, it's just been extremely busy. My daughter's been having concerts every week. She mimes as well, so she has a New Year's Eve mime where she has to minister. So get her prepared for that. And of course, the season has you just busy. It just forces busyness on you. Then of course my regular life is just busy in itself. So, well, I'm gonna say productive, not busy. because it's definitely a difference.
It's momentum building.
Yeah,
Momentum.
yeah. So I have a meeting with a guy about the simulation board next Wednesday. So just trying to strategize and figure out to make sure that 2020 is great in reference to that. Going back and forth with the people in Pakistan working on the actual app, trying to clean up bugs on the Android because I was having issues with mine. So we're trying to get that taken care of, resolved. Outside of that, life is great. This is going to be an interesting topic. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a tough topic, but it's necessary in order for us to get to where we want to be. If we want to experience love, we're going to have kind of uncomfortable conversations. I don't necessarily know if it's an uncomfortable conversation as much as it's a real conversation, and it's going to be necessary for us to self-reflect and be honest with ourselves in order for us to actually experience what we would prefer to experience. So let's dive into the topic. The title of today's topic is Where You Go, You'll Still Be There. Where you go, you'll still be there. This stems from, it's a lot. It's a lot. I have people, just to show how broad this can go, I have people that say, oh, well, I'm going to move to California. The income is better out there, and then I might counter with, okay, well, have you checked out the cost of living out there? And they might hit you with a no, and by the time they do the research, everything kind of bounces out as far as how much they got an increase as far as their job against the cost of living. It pretty much is the same lifestyle, different scenery, same concept, different scenery, which goes back to where you go, you'll still be there. Your issue is not necessarily, your issue is not necessarily your income as much as it is your mindset and what you're doing with your income. So this is going to be the topic that we have to discuss. And the reason why we have to discuss it, because, I mean, we could just end the show by saying, hey, no matter where you go, whether you leave the relationship or not, you're still going to be there. And that can very well be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing. And this is what this particular show is going to find out and verify and speak to. Please bear with me here.
I think that was me leaving. I'm trying to figure out how to post while we're talking. So it's out there. Okay.
All right, perfect. That was actually someone inboxing me. All right, perfect. So let's as far as the show is concerned, again, it's where you go, you'll still be there. And I do want to put a disclaimer out here, because by no means am I saying you shouldn't go. If you should go, in the grand scheme of things, you should go. But as you transition,
going to all of this is going.
As you transition, let's make sure that if and when you go, it's because you are not the issue. It's really them or the circumstance that you're in that's causing the negative space, the negative situation, and not your mindset that is just going to change the scenery, i.e. the person, to create another or re-experience another similar or exact situation, just a different person that you're doing it with. So the reason why this is necessary to unpack is because your external is the realization of your internal. And no matter how you slice it, I'm sorry if your situation is bad and you hit me with a how dare you, he or she is just a monster, but your internal attracted that monster. And oftentimes it is something about your internal that is attracting those type of persons that oftentimes and also need to be addressed. So it's kind of hard to tell if it's you or them, and that's why we're gonna have this particular show today. Before we go, I saw you write down something. So you have anything you want to say before we dive in?
I mentor from this very premise. And the difficulty of this conversation is the epiphany of wisdom that you're responsible for your current situation, regardless of what it is. That you're responsible for it, and you're responsible to change it. That when you can shift from blame to responsibility, life change.
That's real. And honestly, it's the foundation of this show is to kind of honestly really dissect cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance is basically anxiety that results from simultaneously holding contradictory, otherwise incompatible attitudes or beliefs with something that you really disprove of. So basically, you're in a predicament that you would not approve of. Typically, you know how we can check somebody else and resolve their issues, or like I stated on last show, when I heard my wife make a statement about a show, I assumed that she was being a hypocrite because I'm like, that's not your beliefs. You did this, or I've seen you do that, or what have you. So cognitive dissonance is your entire being feeling uncomfortable because you're in a predicament that is contrary to or not aligned with your beliefs. Now, the thing is, though, you can trick your cognitive dissonance, or your cognitive dissonance could have been tricked, and that's why this show is so important, because I want to address and attack how that may have very well happened. If I was in a room and I asked a whole bunch of people, who in here can cook? Oftentimes there will be several people that raise their hand, and I would ask them who taught them how to cook, or where did they learn how to cook? Oftentimes that would be from their family members, grandma, aunt, mom, whomever. And if I asked them who taught them how to cook, they would say their grandma, their mom, and it will continuously go down a whole bunch of generations to basically get there. Now, the same thing applies with how you approach relationships and you view love, and we don't necessarily know where that person that showed us how to do it got it from. And the person that showed them that could have very well been way off base, could have been someone that received love incorrectly, and their response taught you or trained your cognitive dissonance to where it became a belief, and it should not have. So where you're looking at something that is not good, as good or common, to where it doesn't make you feel the anxiety that you're supposed to have when it does not align with your beliefs or your should be beliefs, which we're technically training or growing your cognitive dissonance with this show alone. I've seen you write multiple times. So before we dive into that, Michelle, share your thoughts.
I just try to write so I don't forget and be able to contribute to the thought as it resonates with the conversation. But again, this concept I mentor from all the time. It's just in a different area. But the discomfort that we feel is typically when our values and our reality are out of alignment. And to your point, when it's tricked is when your values are based on a lie. So for me, in my own personal experience, having learned love from the perspective of having to justify your existence or having to earn love is what I grew up around. And that was, like you said, 2 generations before me. that I thought that was truth until I started to have issues with, why do I have to constantly justify my existence in a room? Why do I have to rely more on my intelligence than my person to be valuable? And I started to question it, took responsibility for the truth that I'm acting on. Like, okay, these values may have been given to me, but do I have to keep them is the question. And are they based on something that makes sense? And when I took responsibility and realized that it's a perspective shift. And when I changed the perspective, oh, freedom.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I'm glad you said perspective shift, because it's one thing to observe what actually is, and is another thing to perceive what you observe. So when you observe what actually is and call it what it is, you have a better chance of resolving an issue or realizing an issue, as opposed to perceiving something that you're observing to be more than what it is, which is subjective and oftentimes can be something that would cause an issue or actually misrepresentation of what actually happened. And we're going to have this conversation today because, again, where you go, you'll still be there. You'll still be there. And oftentimes we're trying to move and change our scenery as if that is going to change the outcome or the relationship, when in actuality you're just changing partners because you never address the issue. Now, what happens and what tends to happen is, in order for us to feel or to desensitize our cognitive dissonance, what we will do is we will push the blame on other people so that we will feel fine with ourselves, and instead of dealing with our contributions to the issue and never resolving the actual issue, which is why when we leave, we think it's fixing the problem, and we say stuff like it's everybody else, when in actuality, it is you. You're writing again, so go ahead and share. Go ahead.
I'm listening.
Okay, because
go ahead. The shift that you're talking about, for me, the paradigm shift is like you said, when you're trying to move away from something, are you making sure you're taking yourself with you? But like the good conspiracy theory, right? Like, so we tend to make excuses and it turns into everybody else's fault. And it's this really great story which has a beginning, middle, and end of how they did and blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of like when you run from, hide from, explain away, make excuses, or just make up this whole story, that's you moving from one place to another, trying to get away from whatever it is that's causing your cognitive dissonance. If I change this group, or if I change my location, or if I explain and justify why they do that, they're just this way. Not ever taking the mirror up and going, well, wait a minute, hold on. I'm the common denominator.
Yeah. And you can't even experience cognitive dissonance when you've pushed the blame to make yourself a victim, so that you can't even see that in actuality you are the victimizer. Yeah. So
hold on, you gotta repeat that. You can't even
say that again if I wanted to.
You can't even see that you are the victim when you're the victimizer. What?
So that's dangerous, and that's what we want to kind of make sure that we leave, making sure that it's understood before we transition in this show today. Because again, sometimes you were tricked based off of your experiences, so you've adopted things as this is how things are, and that honestly is not your fault. It's unfortunate, and it's something that you're gonna have to relearn. Like Michelle stated, she had to kind of relearn that for herself, that hold on, wait a minute, this is not right. This is more of a earned thing as opposed to me being loved. It's something that I have to jump through hoops and do all of these tricks in order for me to be loved, as opposed to just. And
I was good at it too, but it was tired.
It's very, very exhausting. So, and then you have you. So, for example, you have people who trick themselves or shift their cognitive dissonance. So I hate to go here, but I'm gonna have to go here. It's like slavery. So what they did in order for them to be okay with treating human beings the way that they did, whipping them, raping them, things of that nature, they called them non-human beings. They literally put laws that dehumanize the humans so that they would feel fine
or validated, gave all kind of evidence to support their theory.
Exactly. They created, they had people that said that it was scientific facts, that things that weren't scientific because there was nothing that measured the claims. Again, there were laws that were put in place, and there were so many things that were subtly done to make them feel comfortable with their cognitive dissonance. Because if they're thinking, well, this is not a human being, I can treat them that way.
Justified.
Yeah, it's justifiable, and it does not bring the angst that comes with it. And it actually makes them, it actually dehumanizes them. Again, when they are claiming that the people that are humans aren't human. So it's very interesting, and that's what I mean by how you can subtly call other people, call yourself a victim when in actuality you are the victimizer. It is something that you've created that caused you to feel like a victim when in actuality you are the actual executioner.
Perpetrator of a fraud.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I wanted to go that far because a human could not really, the actual human is very difficult for them to do the things that had been done throughout the times of slavery without them really actually, I mean, you can literally see children around persons who are hung that are smiling and grimacing over a hung person or burned person. And that is something that was trained and taught, which actually pushed down their cognitive dissonance because of what it is that they were taught was right. You see that that nigger or whatever they would have called them in order for them to be taught that this is okay. So if that is your story, that's unfortunate, and hopefully throughout this process, we'll be able to help you to gain back your, I guess, humanity in a sense, so that you will be released from the bondage that's holding you from being the victimizer, assuming that you are an actual victim. So you have that, and then you also have again, so just to stay on that, whereby, like, for example, when people first smoke a cigarette, nobody first smokes a cigarette and doesn't cough. Your body literally rejects it. You might it might not be a huge cough, but your body rejects it because that's not correct as far as what's happening to your body. But because at that time we either want to feel like an adult or feel cool or what have you, we bypass it and we just continue to smoke and force ourselves to actually enjoy it in order for us to accept it.
Not
and
like an acquired taste.
Exactly. So
overruling the negative taste.
Exactly. So but that's exactly what I'm talking about from an example standpoint. This is things that we kind of do. He or she hit you once. It didn't feel right. So we stayed. And the hits kept coming. And we justified it, and we've done all of these things to cause us to think that this is the norm or to be accepted, or for whatever reason we've done that. And then as time goes by, that becomes a norm. Like when we smoke the cigarette, because norm is it's not rejecting, it is accepted that as a norm, when in actuality that's just not good or healthy for you. So I apologize for all of the examples, but I really need us to understand how tricky or how we can have had our cognitive dissonance tricked. From overridden. Like I said,
I think overridden is
overridden. That's a better.
And I say that because trick is external, and that can happen too. But overriding it is a conscious decision that's repeated over and over again until it becomes a new habit, and then you justify the new habit as a truth. Good. But there's unpacking the overriding, puts it back in your court. If you
That is
take
so
it on
good.
as it's overriding, then I can stop overriding.
That's good. That's good. I'd even take it a step further to overriding your default setting. So because and I have to use
That
that.
tells you, you know stuff
Yeah,
that you keep going, no, that's not true. And you
exactly.
everything in you is like, that's not right. And you're like, well, I mean, okay, we'll try until you blow
Yeah,
up.
and the thing is, once you retrain or override, as you put it, your default setting, when, as we stated in prior shows, when you get emotional or you get angst or whatever, you go to your default setting. So if you're training yourself or what have you, when the character is revealed by circumstance, when the truth comes out, or when it gets hard or tight or tense, you're going to go to your default setting. So this whole process is honestly to transition whatever incorrect default setting you have about love so that the true form of love is your default setting. So that is
I think
what we're
that's really
talking
what's
about.
cool about us humans is we can recalibrate. You are never really stuck anywhere.
Mm,
You can always reset. You can always there's every day is a new opportunity. So every time you get a new day, every time you as long as there's breath, there's opportunity. And that's when we realize that that's one of the best things I think is when you get new information, you behave differently. And you can constantly get new information.
that's exactly right. You remember the quote, I believe, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be moved. Oh my gosh. So it's a process. It's a ongoing process, especially when you're talking about changing your default setting, or as you put it, what was your terminology again?
Overriding?
Overriding. Yes. I don't know why I could not think of that. But yeah, overriding. So this is where we're at today. We're talking about where you go, you'll still be there. So your questions have to be reflective. You need to start with yourself first and work your way out. Because yes, and I'm so happy to know that you've gotten out of this abusive relationship. But if your mindset is what got you into that abusive relationship, you're one abusive relationship away from the other relationship that is going to be abusive. So we have to figure out what internally, whether it be our self-esteem issues, whether it be this is what I've seen as a child, this is what my lifestyle has been all my life. So though it doesn't feel right and it is causing me to have cognitive dissonance, it seems like something that I attract and for some reason feel normal or comfortable around until it gets a little bit too bad, or other people tend to tell me that I shouldn't be in that particular predicament. Go ahead, Michelle. I see you.
He's so
Right.
funny. Anyway, so this conversation is a really nice bookend to similar, not the same, because
Mm-hmm.
what you were talking about last week with everything, perceiving things as similar and therefore reacting in a predetermined way is very much bringing the same you to every situation and assuming that they're all going to be the same, and then doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is what?
Yeah,
Insanity.
it's insanity.
Which
Yeah,
is definitely linked to the cognitive dissonance is insanity. So it's
yeah,
really the same conversation from a different perspective, I think, or a carry on to that conversation.
yeah. Just like we were just talking about, like I've had that conversation with my mom. She's like, "Man, if I could just get $1 million," and I'm like, "Mom, if you just got $1 million, you would end up in your same predicament." And she's like, "Well, what you mean?" Like, so many people think that getting the money is going to resolve the issue, when in actuality, it has absolutely nothing to do with your income and all to do with your mindset. Go ahead.
Let me be a test to that.
Go ahead.
I say that to say I have been very fortunate to make large leaps in my career. And
Mm-hmm.
after the second leap, I realized that if I didn't change my mindset, I could keep making leaps and I'd still be living the same life. And I did, and even some people can tell you that, but if your overriding skills are so good, you
Yeah,
can take that information in and neutralize it real quick. New
yeah,
information. I
yeah.
have Tony Robbins' book, read the whole thing. overwrote with my habit went, that's nice, but that's intellectual.
Yeah.
Read, what is it? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, read it. Overwritten, no change. like, I know, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Girl, get your
you,
money
but it's not
straight.
it.
Read that, overwritten.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that that's the idea of you have to want to change. You have to take responsibility. I can get all this new information, but if I don't take the responsibility to change my behaviors, then I'm not changing. I'm just getting new information.
Yeah, and that's what you remember one of our earlier shows. I said, you can say it all you want. People do. It's coined from Maya Angelou. If you know better, you do better. On the surface level, that's just not a true statement. And as we discussed, we don't think that that's necessarily what she meant. But just to have the knowledge, as you so eloquently just shared, does not mean you will do the proper thing. As far as the know, I've always said, if you believe better, you do better, because it is your beliefs that actually guide your thought process, your movement and your actions. So I can know, just like people know, people that are literally dying of cancer, they know they're dying of lung cancer. They won't stop smoking. They know that you can die of cancer with drinking or smoking, and they won't stop because they don't believe that either it could be them or they don't believe that they can quit. So it is your belief that's going to ultimately transition you. And if you believe that if I stay, he'll change, or if I stay, she'll change, yet that has not happened, then it's
But the
deeper
belief
than
system that you're saying makes any difference in their changing is the really flawed belief system. That at the core, that you are not the source of their change at no level. Even if you inspire something, they still have to make a decision. They still have to make a decision to take responsibility for that. And I did want to say that. Keep going.
That goes back to objective or observing versus perceiving, because you've clearly observed that your staying hasn't changed the thing. You clearly observed that as you transition. That's why you're literally the one saying that all men are dogs, or every man that I end up with is doing the same thing. So if you're consistently repeating that, then we have to stop looking outside of what we're perceiving and looking at the objective, the observed obvious thing. And that's the obvious thing is you are consistently in each relationship or situation that you're experiencing. And if they're looking the same, we have to stop looking outwardly and start looking internally to figure out what is it about me that is causing me to attract this type of person, and for these men or women to think that it's okay to treat me this way or be this way. What is it about me? Oh, what have I seen in my childhood or in my lifetime that may have me subconsciously feeling like, you know what, this is what I'm looking for? Like, this is when we have to start thinking and questioning ourselves before we just go. Because once we go, we still go with us. Our mental goes with us. Our emotional attachment to whatever it is that we left, it goes with us. All of that is a contributing factor to what you're experiencing. Go ahead, Michelle.
I think that the implication could be that if wherever you go, you are there and you don't like where you're going, that you don't like you. That may or may not be the case. And I'll say that for my example of, I used to have a type of person that I like to have in my circle. But that person made me feel a certain way. I'll say like a alpha personality who is a go-getter, a hustler, a driver, somebody, but that tend to make me feel sometimes inadequate. And so the question was, if I'm always attracting and I'm always in this place where I'm feeling inadequate, am I really wrong? But I will tell you that in retrospect, no, it wasn't that I didn't like that attribute. It was that I shouldn't have felt inadequate. So I had to, I'm part of every one of those relationships. I'm the one that was feeling inadequate. They weren't feeling inadequate. So it wasn't that I had to get away from those people. It was that I had to go back to the root and say, wait a minute, why am I feeling inadequate? I can be around these people when I come back to myself and realize I'm good. I'm like, I can be in this room and be compatible with these people or peers with these people. And that made me open the space to be able to be comfortable with something I used to be uncomfortable with by holding myself accountable and making a choice about me. But I did like the attributes that I was trying to think I should run away from. I shouldn't have run away from. I should have stayed, but I should have changed how I looked at them.
Yeah, yeah. You stating that reminded me, I think I might be wrong, but I think it was George Clooney when he first started his acting career. He would go in and he would always get rejected, and he blamed the system of the actual persons who were trying to find a character or for the parts that he was going for, and he blamed them for not realizing how good he was. And then he had a shift in the way he looked at it. He said they're having the interviews because they need somebody. I'm who they need. They're not who I need. And when he looked at it that way, because they would not have the interview if they didn't need someone. And when he studied what type of person they needed, he embodied who they needed. And he came with the mindset of them needing him. And it just shifted how he carried himself. So nothing changed but him and his thought process, his perspective, and how he approached it, which caused him to win and which caused him to be a very, very well-known superstar. Exactly. But had he not shifted his thoughts, he would have continuously went to different locations having the same failures because he was coming from a place of inadequacy. But when he became adequate himself, then he was needed because they wanted that type of confidence. They wanted that type of thought process and that new mental that he brought to the table. And that's like the epitome. I'm glad your story caused me to think about it. That's like the epitome of what it is that we're talking about. Like, are we just going and trying out for things and thinking that it's them, when in actuality it's how we're looking at our circumstance or situation? And we definitely need to figure out where it came from, because either we changed our default setting, or we're the ones that tricked ourselves into feeling that way, or we were indirectly taught something. And the best way to find out if it was something that we were taught is honestly paying attention to the lifestyle of the person that we received it as truth from. What's so crazy to me is it is so common for the people that I interact with to tell me how they got information or wisdom for people that do not have what they want. There's people that will go to their broke friends to ask about a business opportunity as to whether it's a good idea or not. They will go to their single mom to ask about their relationship advice, whose relationship did not work. They will go to people who do not exemplify the outcome that they're looking for and get advice that they take as the gospel from that person. It makes no sense. So my first question is, after you conclude that it was from that person or that experience that caused you to come to the conclusion about how you view relationships or what have you, that's caused you to transition, it might even be that person that says you need to get out of that relationship that does not have a relationship themselves, that's giving you the advice to transition, when in actuality it's something that, as you stated earlier, Michelle, that if you stick to it, it will help you grow, because as we stated in the multiple shows, your environment is your mirror or something to that effect where you're around. So your partner is typically a reflection of you, your weaknesses and your strengths. So it might be something that you need to be working on, which is why if you're consistently having the same experiences with different people, yet you're just transitioning, then you really need to be looking at yourself to figure out what you need to be working on and growing from. Go ahead, Michelle.
My thoughts were that typically we find truth in our life that's causing cognitive dissonance came from somebody who had a position of authority or somebody that we envied.
Yeah.
But someone with a position of authority, like a parent or an employer or a pastor or something, you just ascribe to them that whatever they say is truth, and there's no necessarily no critical thinking about it. You're just like, well, if they said it, it's got to be, and then you just live your whole life based on this premise until you wake up and go, well, hold on, hold on, hold on. Like you said, are they getting the result that I want, or even the one that they said? I'm not sure. And the other
Yeah.
thing is envying people, right? So you can take a truth and say, if they have what I think I want, then what they're doing must be true, not realizing the grass ain't always greener on the other side.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't know what they did to earn that mess.
Well, sir.
And are you willing to pay the same price? We don't know, but it's worth checking into.
Yeah, especially, and that's a great point. Remember something that we talked about you and I in our relationship. We're what 10, 11 years strong, and the consistency of who I am on or off the air has never changed. So I say all that to say, when you're making that decision
He's
based off
evolved,
of
y'all. He's evolved. He's gotten new information and he's grown and changed. But this core person, this is what he talk about every week. That's the dude, right? He been all that. He's been that the whole time, annoying me. So, but I love him.
So the relationship that you're looking at, especially in this Facebook, Instagram, whatever age, for one, I would want to see the relationship off of Facebook or
And
off of
this is
Instagram.
ours on or off. With this right here, this is us.
Exactly. And it should be consistency. And also you need to find out the context behind what it is that you're seeing the results of. Because remember, words are seeds. All right. How you respond to people, whether it be verbally or how you treat them, is a seed. Okay. Now, what people typically see is a person who has a relationship and consistently it's nice or it's good or, oh, I wish I had that, but they're not paying attention to the seeds that have been planted or have been consistently planted. And I'm stressing the consistency and the seeds that have been planted because seeds harvest in seasons, okay? So you never harvest in the same season that you've planted a seed. But if you're consistently planting a seed, you always have a harvest. It's always a harvest season because it's reaping the reward of that seed. So you're not getting, so I understand that there's a harvest that comes in its season, but if I am planting seeds on a continuous basis, that's why I'm continuously reaping a harvest. And the way that people respond to me, the way that my wife responds to me, the way that my children respond to me is because I'm consistently planting seeds so that next year, that next season, that seed has already taken care of that. Go ahead, Michelle.
You are today what you thought yesterday. That
So
is the result of constantly being in a harvest. You are literally today the sum total of what you were thinking about yesterday and or years ago. So you have to get in there and do some digging around and replanting. But I will say, to the point of words or seeds, my story earlier about doing all the study on financial management and financial independence and all that kind of stuff and not making any major changes, I will tell you that while I didn't have a major shift at the time and I had to learn through trial and error that I needed to stop digging up the seed, I left it alone. And I will tell you that now when I'm making shifts in my life, I'm making decisions based on the information I had planted. So the information wasn't wasted. The learning wasn't wasted. It's what's cool about us as humans. The information is in it. I get to tap into it when I need it.
Yeah.
But I thought about it before. So it's available now. So we have to think about why you can take responsibility for where you are right now is because if you think about where your mind was 5 years ago, then you understand why you are where you are today. What you were thinking about 2 years ago, a week ago, 10 days ago, that's why you are right here. But you have a new day. You get to think today about where you want to be tomorrow.
That's exactly right.
Can't remember what book I read that in, but it got me when I did read it. It was like, you are today what you thought about yesterday. I was like,
of course, most certainly.
man, I need to change my thought.
I got a #9. If you are continually planting seeds, you will always have a harvest. You'll always be in season. That's so true.
All kinds of fruits, all kinds of vegetables, you can constantly be harvesting.
Now this is the danger of us being narrow-minded individuals, because that's true on both ends of the spectrum. Because you're gonna either, if you are planting terrible seeds, you're gonna harvest a bad harvest, which goes right back to what we're talking about. Your thought process, literally what you're experiencing, and I hate to say this because we blame the government, we blame so many different things. Again, we're pushing it outside of ourselves. I can't get a job because of the government, the economy, all these things. The minute you push everything outside of yourself, and I'm not disregarding or downplaying the fact that there are definitely things that are intentionally set up to try to make you fail. But the minute you receive that as the reason for your failure is the minute you fail. And the minute that you go into an emotional state that prevents you from even seeing opportunities that will allow for you to maneuver or live above those obstacles that were placed in front of you to prevent you and prevent you from getting there. So whatever it is that you're planning, whether it's being read, whether it's being said to yourself, whether it's being received from people that do not have your aspirations. And the reason I'm stressing, I've talked about things that are outside of relationships because this all contributes to relationships. Your finance contributes to your relationship. Your parents and how they are coaching you or not coaching you, your friends, all of that contributes to your relationship. So if you are allowing those people or those experiences that don't align with what you're looking for to influence you and to be in your ear, the loudest person in your ear oftentimes, that is the reason why you consistently, because you keep seeking the same counsel, looking for a different result. And it's just dangerous and it's scary. And all it's doing is reshaping your cognitive dissonance, which is what we've been talking about today. So it's either you that's doing it or your environment that's doing it. But we have to get to the point where we start looking at ourselves and what we're allowing to contribute to us so that it can do what it's unfortunately doing.
We have to learn to be intentional about what we put around us. We don't have to just be a victim of what our environmental circumstances expose us to. We can choose to insert new information. For example, like we were talking about a couple of shows ago, both of us have morning habits to intentionally set the day for a particular expectation. That's knowing that you're walking into a world of circumstances you have no control over that may impact you in all kinds of ways, but come to the game prepared to adapt, not just rolling in there, whatever happens, happens. That's what I feel like is our responsibility. That's taking responsibility is saying, like we said, where you go, that's where you are. Wherever you go, that you're there. Well, where are you going?
Yeah. And why are you going there?
Why are you going there?
Why are you going there? What caused you to go?
Are you supposed to still be there?
Yeah, exactly.
True, but those are questions you got to ask almost every day. And if I thought about something yesterday that's causing me to have a negative response, then what did I think that made this? What do I keep thinking? Which does require keeping your mind quiet for a minute, and God knows that's not the easiest thing to do.
And what's bad about it,
if you can't quiet the noise.
What's bad about it is if you're consistently uprooting a plant that's trying to root itself, it's never going to grow. And all you're doing is, remember we stated before, you have to go through the process. I don't want to wear braces, but I want to get my teeth right. You got to go through the 3 years. No matter how you slice it, you got to do the 3 years if you want to get it done. So you can either go through the process quickly, go ahead and get it over with, or you can continuously take off. You know what? I don't like these braces. Take them off. And then you're looking at your teeth and you're like, oh, you have to go through the actual process if you want to get the results. And oftentimes we uproot ourselves because we don't like to feel we don't like feeling uncomfortable with the truth, and that's all it is. It's uncomfortable with the truth. It's uncomfortable with the mirror, because where we go, all we do is recreate and see. It's so interesting. I have many ethnic colleagues, so it's
diversity of ethnicities is what you're saying.
Yes. So
a lot of types of people.
Yeah, they could be from a different country or different culture, and when I've literally seen them move from another house to a house, and it's literally there's not shade or anything like that, but you can sense their culture in every household that they move to. You can literally sense and feel and smell their culture as they transition. And spiritually, when you transition, you are bringing everything that is in you, the culture of your beliefs, your thought process, and your patterns to that relationship. So it's not until, for one, if you leave and go to self and really, really spend time with yourself, which is the foundation of the no love triangle, so that you can get to the root of your thought process. But you're still going to have to try it out with another person. And so, which is still going to have conflict and mirrors. So you're going to have to go through the process if you want to ultimately become a partner of someone else and sharing that love with a companion. But go ahead, Michelle.
I was just thinking about like all the things that we're talking about from a love standpoint. Wherever you go, that you're there. Wherever you are looking for love, you're actually going to find yourself. And if you've never really found yourself, then how are you really going to be able to give love, right? Like, how if you never looked at yourself and seen, I love this, then how can you really love somebody else, really?
First and foremost, the person that you're looking for is you. You are the person that you're looking for. You're looking for these people to make you happy, and it's you that's supposed to make you happy. You're looking for somebody to fix this thing, and it's you that were created to feel uncomfortable about that thing because you were the chosen one to fix that thing. So we continuously look for people to take care of stuff that we were created to take care of, and we live in this lifestyle upset that no one has taken care of it when we are the ones that we're supposed to do it. And that's with our relationships, that's with our lifestyles, and that's oftentimes your purpose, your God-given purpose. That angst, that discomfort that you have, that discontent with the circumstance that you're in, is literally you were created to take care of that and resolve that issue, but you keep waiting on somebody else to do it. That's why you continuously are in a state of discontentment, because you're not taking care of what you were agitated intentionally to take care of.
I think that's why I'm feeling like today, like I said, today was a phenomenal day, but I also I have more of those because I am free to do what I feel is important to me, without making somebody else feel bad. I'm not doing it to hurt anyone, or I don't feel like I have to devalue someone else. I also am privileged to have people in my life that support me in doing that, and I can give them support. It's kind of like what you're saying about your family. So I'm single or not married, and I don't have people that are in my house that I have to get in that relationship with, like that's transparent all the time around me. But I do feel like that same way that your family is willing to give to you because you give to them, or serve you because you serve them, I have that same type of relationship with people around me because I don't have any problem serving them, because I don't feel like I'm losing anything, because I like me with or without them. So serving them doesn't hurt me, and it doesn't hurt anybody. And it's a wonderful thing to be content, because I'm working out my own purpose. I'm working out my own joy. I'm working out my own happiness and stuff, realizing that bumping into somebody else and sharing that happiness just makes it more. It's not like I'm losing it. It's just like, yay, you're here. We can have more fun. But when you leave, I'm going to have fun.
That's awesome. So
this is a great life. Life is good.
Yeah. But it's a shift in your perspective, how you look at things.
He knows. This is not the person that read the book the first time. The one that you're hearing right now, this is not the person 10 years ago that read the book. I was like, I'm a victim. My life is miserable. A bunch of jerks that keep being attracted to me. I don't like none of this. I'm smart over here, but these people.
Yeah. And that's true though. And I don't know, like this is such a it's really subtle. Just any concluding thoughts, because we're about to wrap it up, because it's not really much we can say about it. But any?
My last thought is that I'm a living a testament to what we're talking about. I consciously get and do this work every day, and it has paid off and keeps paying off and over and over again, and it's exponential, like compound interest. I feel like I've invested like 5 cents and I've gotten $1 million somehow over compound interest. And so I'm encouraging you, like, do the work. It's so worth it. Like an hour can give you back, like that scripture that says he'll give you back what the canker has, or the worm has stolen or restored to you. Like, I feel like you put this little bit in, and because of how the world is made, you invest this little bit in yourself, and it's just expounded and grown, and you get to overflow. But it's like it's never over. Like, you can still keep growing. And the possibilities are endless, regardless of the situations in life that we live in. And we live in a very turbulent time. So I'm not saying diminishing that at all. But the space between my ears is my responsibility. And that I can control and manage regardless of what is going on in the world. And that is the privilege of being a person. Like, the gift of life is to control the space between my ears.
That's good, because it is the space between your ears that you're taking with you when you leave. That is what is determining your perspective, your thought process, responses, your conclusions. All of those things are literally bagged up in suitcases and sitting right between your ears. And you're either putting bad laundry in those suitcases, or you're taking stuff out and putting in new and fresh clothes or gear or what have you. But it's definitely necessary, because where you go, you'll still be there. So if you're not taking care of the common denominator, you're going to get a common response and a common conclusion to your new journey, or your new relationship, or your new place, or your new job, or your new whatever it is that you're running to, as an assumption that external thing is going to be the solution to your internal issues. You're not escaping. You're not escaping it. So I definitely want to kind of recap what we kind of discussed, because again, your external is the realization of your internal, but that can sometimes be your fault, and sometimes it's not your fault, but it's always going to be your responsibility to change it and shift it at this point. So first, what we have to do is be honest with ourselves, and kind of analyze where we got our thought process about how we concluded that our relationship or our situation is wrong to where we want to leave. And once we realize why we want to leave, come to grips with how we came to that conclusion, that other person was wrong or what have you. And then from there, figure out where you got that thought process or philosophy from. Once you get to the root of where you got that philosophy from, figure out at your mature age as to whether that philosophy makes sense. Does the person that you got the philosophy from have what it is that you aspire to have in a relationship? Does the person or the time frame in which you received it, were you mature enough to come to the conclusion that you came to when you had that experience that allowed for you to adopt that as truth or the way things are? And then if you get past that point and say, well, it's nothing that taught me that, or that was wrong that I could kind of snatch from the root, go to whether you're the one that actually convinced yourself that this way is the right way. Remember the whole smoking example. When you initially smoke the cigarette, your body rejects it, but if you continuously do it, it will begin to receive it. It's kind of like, they give the example of how to kill a frog. No, I don't want any PETA mail. Don't send me. I'm not saying kill a frog. They say if you throw a frog in boiling water, it would immediately jump out. But if you put a frog in just lukewarm water or cool water and then slowly increase the temperature, the frog will tend to stay in there even up until its boiling point, getting adjusted and acclimated with the temperature to where it gets boiled to death. Now, that's literally what shifting your cognitive dissonance look like. And oftentimes we are the ones that do it. We hang around people that we want to be around or like, and we start adopting their lifestyles when it didn't feel comfortable at the beginning, and we just let it keep on passing to where it became a norm, or he or she hit you or verbally disrespected you, and it didn't feel right when it first happened, but you let it slide, and then it kept happening, and then it became a norm to where the people on the outside looking like, did you hear what he or she said to you, or your children? Like you literally don't want to be in in the room, or you move or shift the actual scene to another room because you don't feel that it's right. I'm gonna put it to you like this: even as adults, if you have a lifestyle or you're doing stuff that you don't feel your children should see, that is not an adult thing. That's just not right. Outside of sex or whatever, like if you're shifting your thought process, because I have, again, cognitive dissonance. We say stuff like, well, I'm grown, I'm an adult or whatever. If you have to hide what you're doing from your pastor or people that you look up to or church or whatever, which blows my mind. They be like, you did that in church, or you saying that, or you lied in church. I'm like God can't hear you outside of church. Like if you have different places that you compartmentalize, this is okay here, but it's not okay there, that is a great sign that the way you're living or doing something is wrong, and you're trying to train yourself that is the norm. Because if it was a norm and it was fine, you would do it everywhere. So that's another guide that you can use. So just be mindful that sometimes you're the one that's tricking yourself and convincing yourself to shift your default setting and change or trick your cognitive dissonance, because those things should make you feel uncomfortable. Watching TV, what you're watching. If you're consistently watching whatever housewives or people that are in bad relationships, in your mind, though you're laughing at it and calling it stupid, you're slowly training yourself for that to be normal or okay, when at first you looked at it like, can you believe these people are doing that? But now it's like, okay. And we talked about the whole Olivia Pope. We're cheering for the actual her to get with the president when he's married. When you're slowly being given that information, that's that heat slowly increasing to a boiling point, to where, as we talked about the chains, they get too heavy to lift, because at that point you've shifted and changed your default setting, and now it's hard to move. I'm stuck in this way of living and thinking or whatever, because I've allowed myself to slowly go into that place. Now, if you go through this check where you're analyzing where it came from, and it came from your parents, and it's unfortunate, but now you're mature enough to start working on transitioning yourself back, or consistently coming here to learn that these things are wrong. Or if you realize that you did it, and or you were doing it, or that you didn't, and by the time you do all of that checking, you realize it's not you, it's not your family, and it's them, great. Transition.
But sometimes it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't want anyone leaving thinking that it's always you. Now, but I'm saying start with you. That's all I'm saying. Because typically we start with them. And you can typically find something wrong with someone else when you don't want it to be you. So let's start with you and be very honest and thorough with ourselves, and then work our way out to the person. If you make it to the other person, or even if you make it to you, realize your faults and get to the other person, share what you concluded about yourself, and then make sure you address what's going on with the other person. and then transition if you need to transition, and work on it if you need to work on it. But that's pretty much all we're saying today. That's it. Let me read what this last comment is before we transition. It says the process is not always easy, but can be easier when you love yourself. The first step is always the hardest. Again, we're talking about shifting or literally changing a default setting. So you remember the chains again. It's hard to move, but it was a habit that you created. So it's going to be a habit that you're going to have to start differently. That's going to make you feel uncomfortable when you transition. But ultimately, if you're consistent with it, it's going to become your new habit, and it will be easier. Matter of fact, it will be easy because that will be your new default setting, just like your current default setting is, your default thought process is. That's all habits that you've created. That's all thoughts that you've created. That's mantras that you said to yourself that allowed for it to go from being on you to in you, which is now who you are. So that's all we have, y'all. I can't stress y'all enough how much I just appreciate you all, your minds, your time, as we start to slowly shift and change our default settings when it comes to this love, because we are combating some serious stuff. We're combating commercials. We're combating television. We already said that, it's called tell-a-vision. They're telling you their vision. We're combating YouTube things. We're combating our family's dysfunction, which came from dysfunction that they had to experience. Talk about, post-traumatic stress disorder. I was reading a book about post-traumatic slave disorder. Remember how we talked about the whole cooking and everything like that. Imagine the thought processes of, that women and black men had that they taught, or the children saw, that just went from generation to generation, where they didn't explain it. That's just how they responded. So it was adopted as to how you should look and be concerned or whatever. But the same thing on the flip side, it's the people that had the people in slavery that watched those people that now look at them with the same eyes, that they don't know where that thought process or was taught, but they taught their kids and their children's children. So it's all coming from a source. And if we don't get to the root of the source to find out whether it's right or wrong, we are typically, we're just parroting things or just moving as robots, and we're existing as opposed to really being human beings that are running and controlling our lives. All right. So with that being said, I love you all dearly. I pray for you all consistently, and I will continue to read and grow so that I can grow enough to assist in your growth. You all are amazing, patient, and wonderful intellectuals, and I can't wait to speak to you all later. Love y'all. Take care. Peace.
Peace.